Hey everybody, it's me, Angela Walters. Welcome to my weekly live chat. I'm super excited to spend the next few minutes talking about my favorite things, or one of my favorite things, quilting. And in this week's live chat, I'm announcing a brand new video series. So if you have joined in my live chats before, you probably kind of know what I'm getting ready to talk about twice a year, we have what we call the Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along. Now, had I been thinking way back in the day, I might have made that name a little shorter, but it's a free video series that comes out, like I said, twice a year, and we talk about quilting, and this is one of the 2 days that I get to announce it. So think of this like me having my baby, and now I'm showing you my baby. So I'm excited to show you all about it and tell you all the details. If this is your first time joining my live chat, thank you for coming. Normally we talk about machine quilting, specifically, but this time we're talking about the class. But if you're watching live, leave your questions in the comment box. I've got Anna and Jessica behind the camera, and Jessica's going to write down your questions and give them to me at the end. If you're not watching live, no worries, you can leave those in the comments below. So super excited. Before we get started, I hope everybody is having a great May and that the weather is great wherever you are. It's sunny and beautiful here, and so I just love it. All right, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about the new Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along Negative Spaces. So basically, when I put together this video series, or think of it kind of like an online class, I always teach some kind of topic or technique, and before I go live on my chats, I kind of type chat with everybody that's on there. And a few months ago, probably about 9 months ago, people were like, oh, we want to see negative spaces, or how do we handle those big background areas? So this is straight up from everybody that has participated in all those live chats. So basically what I'm going to do is kind of show you what it's about and tell you how to participate. And I hope you're excited to learn more and quilt along with me. So when I talk about negative spaces, I'm really just talking about the area around the blocks, or the area around the most important parts of our quilt. You might think, maybe not as important as the blocks, but the quilting you put in those background areas can really add some impact and help guide where people look on your quilt. So it's a lot of fun to quilt as well. So here is the schedule. This is what we're going to be talking, or the videos will be coming out July 1st. So plenty of time to pre-order your products, to get everything ready, but July 1st is when the first video launches, and in fact, that first week we'll have 2 videos, and then every week since. But if you're watching and you're like, oh my gosh, no, I'm going to be out of town in July, no worries. All my Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along videos are available to watch anytime, so you can always catch back up whenever it's convenient for you. But the first video will come out July 1st. So let me kind of show you what I have in mind, what we're going to learn together as we quilt along. The first week, like I said, we'll have 2 different videos. We're actually going to focus on the blocks. Now, I did feel a little weird about this because I'm like, it is the background video series, but if we're making this panel, we got to be able to quilt the blocks. So we're going to start with the blocks and then all the techniques for the backgrounds. And one thing that I say a lot in my live chats is continuous curve is the way to go for versatile designs. So if you need something easy and quick, that's going to be the perfect way to go about it. And so that's going to be one of the first videos where we're just going to learn the basic continuous curve technique, and then I'm going to show you a bunch of different variations. And so we're going to kind of explore and kind of have fun with that design idea. What I love about some of the techniques we're going to be learning in this video series is it's not like learn this design and quilt it on your quilt. They're more like techniques or things that you can take in and come up with your own variations and your own ideas. And the continuous curve is exactly the same way. Continuous curve is kind of like echoing as far as the wonder design. It can work in blocks of all sizes, it can work in blocks of all shapes, and you can make so many different variations with it. In fact, as I kind of sat down and was filming the video for the continuous curve, I had to kind of like limit myself because I can't, show everything. It'd be like a 2-day-long video, but it's just really, really fun to work with. Now, if you have tried it before and you're like, ugh, I've got some tips that will make it easier, so you'll have to definitely check that out. Now we're going to learn more about the custom panel I designed for the video series, but the panel does have some quilting guidelines on the blocks to help you out. So it's just kind of like a little bit of a training wheels for quilters, just gives you something to kind of follow along. Now also that first week we're going to talk about echoing. Now I know like everybody that has ever watched any of my videos is like, oh yay, echo, because I love to echo. Echoing is like your best quilting friend. It's an easy way to highlight your blocks. It's an easy way to hide your quilting. But in this way, we're going to be using it almost like a set of parentheses to kind of help show off our block. So when we talk about quilting those big background areas or negative spaces, we first have to decide how much do we want the blocks to stand out. And if I don't want them to get, kind of blending in with the background, I'm going to use echoing to help separate that. Now in the video, I'm going to show you 3 different ways to echo. So you can make this as basic or as complex as you want. I'll probably like to go over the top because I love to quilt things to death. But I will say that you don't have to echo. It's totally optional, which is why it's kind of in with the first week. You can either do it or not. But we're going to talk through the basic echo. Then we're going to talk about selective echoing. Just because you piece that whole block doesn't mean you have to echo all the sides. And you can see in this example here, I've only echoed around some of the squares, not necessarily the points. So we'll see why I do that and how it's a great way to still get that effect. And then we'll do some embellishment where we kind of echo, but we throw in some other lines to build up smaller blocks or to add some more interest. And so kind of taking that technique and then building up with it. Now, one thing I should have said when I very first started is this video series is for every quilter. If you're a brand new machine quilter just looking, to improve your machine quilting skills, it's for you. If you're an established, experienced machine quilter looking for design inspiration, it's for you as well. I have kind of a range of designs in each of the videos, so you can kind of hit everybody everywhere. And then with the echoing, how we can build up smaller blocks. So when I'm looking at those background areas or those negative spaces, if my blocks are kind of small, I really don't want the quilting to overwhelm them. So sometimes using the echoing and the quilting can help build them up and prevent that from happening. Now, if this were a block that I didn't love, like maybe I didn't piece it right or it's not my favorite fabric, then I definitely wouldn't do that. So we'll also learn where or like when and why I would do those kind of things. Then the next week, once that first week's passed, the next video comes out, we're going to talk about adding movement. So like I've already kind of said, we're learning specific designs, but we're also learning techniques. So these techniques can work with several different designs. So the first thing we're going to talk about is adding movement, or how you can use wavy line designs to help draw your eye to a particular block. And this is one of my favorite ways to quilt background areas of all shapes and sizes. It just kind of runs the lines into that block and is like, hey, in case you're wondering where to look, you should look right here. We're going to talk about the wavy design and the OG design. We can see those there, but really any wavy design or any design that will run into the block will work. So we'll be talking about movement. What I love about quilting wavy lines is anybody can quilt a wavy line. If you don't think you can, just try quilting a straight one and chances are it'll come out wavy. That's a joke. They're not all funny, but they're all jokes. Anyway, so that first week we're going to talk about adding movement. You can see there's the 2 different designs, the wavy and the OG. What I love about it, and I gotta not slip into teaching mode because that will happen if I'm not careful, it helps you break up those bigger background areas and make it more manageable. All right, and then the next week is probably my favorite, if I'm allowed to have a favorite, is changing scale. So this is another really easy way to draw attention to a particular part of your quilt, even when you're quilting the same design over the whole area. So when I talk about scale, I'm really just talking about the size of the design. So we're talking about changing up the size to create some different effects. It's actually pretty easy to do, and you can do it with almost any quilting design. And here you can see on this example, I've got a couple different examples of that. Quilting the same design over a whole area, but changing that scale just helps kind of draw your eye to that point, helps you get comfortable quilting that design, but also helps you learn how to change up your design size as you're quilting. Now, I know for newer quilters that can be tricky, but don't worry, I have some tips and some suggestions to help you get comfortable quilting in those different sizes. Because once you learn the design, learning how to quilt it a bunch of different ways makes it a lot more versatile. We're going to talk about how to have a gradual change of density here, or how you can be intentional with the placement of your larger designs to frame something or draw your eye to something. Just a really easy way to take one design and do it in some really fun ways. And so I kind of, when I was quilting this panel, I was just kind of experimenting with what I was going to teach and kind of thinking through it, and I had fun kind of coming up with some different applications. So we're going to see doing that. And then you can tell here, again, just adding those different sizes. It doesn't have to be just pebbles. So even though I might show it with swirls or a particular design, just know you can do these techniques with other designs as well. But wait, there's more. Then on week 4, we're going to add secondary patterns with the quilting. Now this is a technique that is admittedly a little abstract because not every quilt pattern is the same. But when you can create some secondary patterns in the backgrounds of your quilts, it's really cool looking. It adds a little bit of, extra emphasis in your quilting. It looks difficult, but it isn't necessarily any harder. And so definitely was one of my favorite ways to, especially back when I quilted for customers, one of my favorite ways to give them a little bit more oomph without any more effort. So we'll talk about, what to look for. How can we extend the lines out? How can we connect points that are already pieced in there to create those secondary designs? And here you can kind of see where I just extended out the side of that star and kind of filled it in. Doing this is, again, just kind of like the other designs. It can be as basic or as complex as you want. And so we're going to kind of learn how to create those secondary patterns. How do we make them show up from the rest of the quilting, and what do we fill them in with? It's a really, really fun technique, and I can't wait to show you. When I plan out the whole video series, I get the panel and I quilt a bunch of different stuff on it, and then I decide what I'm going to teach. And so this was kind of my playing time, but we can see some different examples of what we're going to do. Now, if you've quilted along with me, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Just by watching the videos or buying the products is so supportive to me and our business, and I appreciate that. And I also love that people listen to me talk about quilting. Everybody else in my life doesn't really want to. It's not like my 16-year-old daughter wants me to talk about echoing, but I do appreciate that you do it. But if you have quilted along with me, then you probably know I do put together some free quilting diagrams and tips for the videos. And so I am a paper person when it comes to taking notes, and I like to be able to look at the paper, but I will have free quilting diagrams for the video series as well. I'll also have an expanded resource PDF, but that's not done yet, so we won't talk about that quite yet. All right, now I know if you're watching, you're like, oh yeah, I want to participate. I'm sure you do. I will say I know that summers are busy, but sometimes just carving out that time for yourself to practice quilting or do something you love, which just kind of helps with our mental health and our happiness. So how do you participate in the Free Motion Challenge? The good news is it's free and easy. That's kind of the short answer there. But first, gather your supplies. I try to make it very easy to join me. You don't need a lot of stuff. You need some fabric, you need a machine, sewing machine or long arm, because I'll show on both, and then thread and a needle. But if you would like, I do put together exclusive supplies for the video series. So throughout the videos, I'll be quilting on an exclusive quilt panel that I designed for the videos. It's really, it's really fun to plan both of them out at the same time, right? So I'm designing the panel, I'm thinking, what do I want to teach? What kind of canvas do I need for that? And you all have to know that there is so much like angst and back and forth, and I know the gals that work with me, and Jessica and Anna could probably attest to that. They're like, oh my gosh, but anyway, here it is. So I'm excited to show you the panel. All the products for the video series are available for pre-order. So they'll be shipping somewhere around mid-June, but plenty of time for you to get it and get it all ready to quilt along with us. So the quilt panel is just basically gives us the experience of quilting a quilt top without the time and effort of making it. And so it's just a kind of fun way to have a finished project when you're done. Now, I know it's hard to imagine what it looks like when it's not quilted, so here is the actual panel. So if any of you all out there are watching, you're like, I've seen her videos. She's not much of a pink or purpley kind of person. This is a little bit out there for me, but I kind of love the different kind of color blocking. We have our different sections to fill in with our different designs, and I just love being able to kind of work through that with the viewers that watch the videos. All right, and like I said, there are some quilting guidelines in there for the continuous curve. They're subtle. I don't want it to be like, whoa, look at this black line, but just some guidelines there to help you out with it. Now, one thing we started, gosh, this is like, I don't even know how many video series or how many challenges we've done. It's a lot. But several years ago, we started making them available in 2 sizes. We have the 42 by 54, which is a smaller panel, but we also have the larger option in case you want to, make a bigger quilt out of it. Just depends on where your skill level is and what you're working with. It's just kind of fun to have the same option in those 2 different sizes. But one thing I decided that would be fun with this panel is you could just leave it as a quilt, or you can cut it into sections. The way it's designed, you can cut it into those thirds, and you can have wall hangings or pillows or bed runners, whatever floats, whatever kind of strikes your inspiration there. I think I'm going to cut mine up and turn it into wall hangings. Not because I think we have too many quilts, because you can never have too many quilts, but maybe you're like, I just want to practice and have just a little something. So here I just kind of mocked it up on a wall. I thought it looked super cute. Now I wrote in here, each section measures approximately 18 by 42. That's for the smaller panel. The larger panel, they measure approximately 22 by 58. So kind of gives you idea of how big those are. So it gives you a little bit more versatility with the panel. I personally would quilt it all at one time and then cut it into thirds, but you could also cut it separately and then quilt it if you want a smaller project to work on. I know sometimes, especially when we're quilting on sewing machines, wrestling the big quilt through there can be a little bit tricky. Now for a limited time, we will have, if you pre-order or buy the large panel, you'll get the small panel half price or half off. So you can definitely take advantage of that. Sometimes you can't decide which one to get. You can get them both. Just use the promo code PANEL when checking out. Now, I should say that all the information for this is in the description box below the video. So just click on that link and it will take you to all the stuff I'm talking about. So if you want to take advantage of that buy one, get one free, you're gonna use promo code PANEL when checking out. And while supplies last, I put together a free pin for this challenge. Now, I did that, I don't know, 4 or 5 challenges ago, but last challenge, or at every challenge, I'd have a little pin that kind of, commemorated it, and just like a little round, regular pin. But last challenge, I didn't do it. And apparently, that was not the right thing to do. Nobody was mean about it, but people were like, hey, we want the pin. So I was like, okay, we'll bring the pin back. So it's just a little 2-inch pin, and it just goes in free with your purchase of a panel. There's no promo code, nothing to enter. We just throw those in while we have them. So it's kind of a fun way to, wear your flair about your panel on there. Now with the panel, there's also some optional add-ons. So you could get the panel by itself, or if you want, you can add on borders. It's funny because I don't love piecing borders, and I definitely don't love piecing multiple borders. So imagine my surprise when I designed some of the first panels and people were like, we want borders. So I've put together a border panel that you could add on that. It looks like it's pieced, but it's not. It's just the 4 seams where you sew it around, and you can kind of see the mock-up of it there. I will have a video at the very end where I give you quilting design ideas for the border, but I will give you the short, quick, example. The fabric is so busy, you're not going to see the quilting in the border anyway. But we have the borders for both sizes. So if you want something a little bigger, just something that looks a little bit more like a quilt, you can add that on as well. And then backing fabric. So if you want to get the backing fabric and binding, that comes with that as well. So when you're checking out, you can add it. And then the coordinating threads. If designing the panel is one of the hardest, most like brain using thing, picking out the threads is the reward at the end of it. I love picking out the coordinating thread colors. It's my favorite thing to do. On our online store, we sell all the glide threads, all of them. And so I go pull them and I look at them. And so these are the coordinating threads that go with the panel. We can kind of see the different colors. The eggplant, the top middle, is a beautiful like purplish blue. It's just gorgeous. Depending on your screen, it might read purple or blue, but beautiful purple blue. And then we have like that purple and that hot pink, which again is such an unusual color for me, but I kind of love it. And then blush and baby blue as well. Now, here in a little bit, I'm going to tell you how to get the suggested supplies, but in there we'll have thread placement suggestions so you can know where to put the thread colors if you want. Now, I need to tell you all, I'm not necessarily a rule follower when it comes to quilting placement, but if you're like, no, I want to know what thread to use where and which design to use where, I got you. We'll get you taken care of for sure. I've also put together some coordinating products. So these aren't the panel or the add-ons, but it's just some additional things. This challenge, I have a coordinating fabric collection that goes with it. And this is something I've done before, right? I'm already designing the panel. I'm already kind of thinking something, so I kind of make it into a fabric collection. But this would probably be the first free motion challenge where the fabric came first. So the fabric actually came first and then the panel came after it. I really struggled with like which colors to use, and so the fabric would just kind of have all of it. Now, it actually comes from the textile fabric collection. So if you watch the Midnight Quilter, where I did the Impracticality quilt, or if you've been on the website, we have this whole rainbow fabric collection. But for the panel, I pulled out just the colors that work with the panel. First up, here's the rainbow of colors in the textile fabric collection. So orange and green, all the pretty saturated colors that we love as quilters, right, as fabric fondlers. But if you want to get the coordinating fat quarter bundle, I have the negative spaces, and it just has the fabrics that coordinate with the panel. So if you want to add your own borders or whatever you want to do with it, you can check that out as well. Again, all that is linked below. So really saturated pinks and just a hint of red in the blues and some different textures and some different designs. It was a lot of fun. And then lastly, I feel like I'm starting to verge onto infomercial a little bit here, right? But wait, there's more. I put together a pillow panel as well. So not every challenge do I get around to this, but the pillow panel is just a smaller option. I know sometimes it can be scary to try free motion quilting, especially, when you're like, I don't know what to do. So if you need something a little bit smaller, we have the pillow panel option, and that's gonna have some of those guidelines. It's gonna be perfect for a littler project, or if you wanna piece it into a bigger project. It's just a fun way to take part of that bigger panel and incorporate it into the smaller one. Now, just a reminder, these are all pre-order. They're due to ship mid-June. So go ahead and order now so we can make sure we get it in time, and then we'll ship them. It's funny because between Quilt Walk and then our block of the month, Build a Quilt, and then this, we've all just been cutting like crazy. A lot of fabric cutting on going around here. All right, once you gather your supplies, that was all one segment, gather all your supplies, then you're gonna register for free. Honestly, the videos will be on my YouTube channel. You can access them anyway. But if you sign up with your email, that will allow me to email you directly the links to the videos and the free quilting diagrams and all that stuff. So on my website, if you go to the link in the description box or go to quiltingismytherapy.com, you can register your email there, and I'll email you the suggested supply list for the video series. So just some things that you might find helpful. Machine, thread, fabric, Mark Be Gone, marking pen, that kind of stuff. So you'll have that. And then once the videos start in July 1st, then I'll email you directly, oh, hey, the video's out. Here's some other pictures, some other tips. And you can have that direct access. Then all you have to do is time to quilt and connect. It's kind of like how I quilt and connect. So basically, once the videos start on July 1st, they'll start coming out, and then you'll watch the video. You'll think, oh, that looks amazing. I want to try it. And you'll give it a try on your panel or on your fabric. And then if you have any questions, about the challenge or the topic or free motion in general, well, you can join my weekly live chat like you are right now. And so join the live chat to ask any questions that you might have. And then if you'd like, join the Facebook group, because that's a great way to share pictures of what you're doing and to cheer on other quilters. I kind of want it to feel a little bit like a community or like a little class. And so that's going to allow you to kind of cheer each other on and have fun with it. Plus, I love seeing what you all have done with the videos that we put out. So the live chat, again, usually every Thursday at 3 p.m. Central. Whew, so there you go. It's funny, that 20 minutes actually is the culmination of lots and lots of work. But if you want any more details, just click the link in the description box below, visit quiltingismytherapy.com, and you can find all of the information about that video series. Now, even though it doesn't start until July, I will be back with lots of questions. I will be back next week with another live chat. I'm going to talk about quilting design ideas for animals. That was a request from the live chat, so it'll be kind of fun. All right, so questions. How do you handle quilting when the color of the thread is the same color of the quilt? I get an extra glass of wine because you can't see the quilting anyway. No, I'm just kidding. When you can't see the thread, turn off the overhead light, so cover up the light on your machine and try to put a side light, and that will cast a shadow and that will help you see where you're at. That's how I handle it. Will I show ghost blocks in the challenge? We're going to touch on that briefly with the secondary design. So yeah, how do we quilt the blocks we wish we had pieced in the background area? Again, another fun and easy way to show off the pattern. How do you see previous quilting when using matching thread and fabric? I love the questions. Previous quilting, honestly, when the thread matches the fabric and the fabric is busy, you really can't see it. So it's a great time to practice, right? So truthfully, especially depends on the size of thread you use as well. So if it's a thinner thread and it blends in, you're really not going to be able to see it. Have you ever used 2 layers of batting in your quilts? I have, and I love it. I specifically do that for challenges because it makes the pictures look great. You can really see the quilting. I do it for Tula because it makes the pictures look great, and for wall hangings. I wouldn't necessarily do that for a bed quilt because it'd be very heavy, but man, it just makes it hang nice and flat and really gives that quilting definition. So yes. Will we be using rulers in the new free motion challenge? I will be using a straight edge ruler, and that's it. It's not required, you don't have to have it, but for that echoing, it's definitely going to help you, and for the secondary designs. It looks like the panel is broken up by background color, so you can go from top to bottom on a long arm. Is this what you would recommend rather than doing all the blocks and then start over with the background? So that's always the conundrum, right? On a sewing machine, I start in the center. On a long arm, I start at the top. The answer to your question is yes and no. So you can work straight down, but in the video series, we're going to talk about the blocks first. And so if you wanted to, you could jump around and do the blocks. I probably would just, on a long arm, work my way down. So that's how I would handle it, but again, it's totally up to you. And then, do I change the bobbin thread color with every top thread color change? This is a fluid question. before I would say I always match my bobbin color to the thread top. I mean, I've been quilting for 20 some years, and like for almost 20 some years, I've been like that. But now that I'm using pre-wound bobbins, they're not available in all the thread colors as the thread on top. So instead of matching the thread color, I match the thread value. So for instance, if I'm using the hot pink thread on the top, I'll use a medium neutral, so like a medium tan or a medium gray. And then if it's a busier background fabric, busier backing fabric, you're not going to see the quilting anyway, so you can kind of take that. Now, if you're quilting along with me on the challenge and you want to, you could totally wind your own bobbins off of that and have them match. That's up to you. But for the most part, I match the value of that. But I got to be careful because I want to explain, like, you can do whatever you want. There's no wrong answer here. So if you're watching and you're like, no, I love it to contrast, then you do you. That's definitely fine. That's just kind of how I handle it. So thank you so much for joining me. I know that was a lot of stuff to throw at you like all at once. Trust me, it was a lot of stuff to come up with. But the short of it is I'm super excited on July 1st to start quilting along together. The truth of the matter is we have to practice to get better at free motion quilting, but sometimes it can be scary practicing by yourself. And in this way we can do it together and we can quilt along and have a good time with it. Now, like I said, even though the videos are starting July 1st, go ahead and get your pre-orders in, and then I'll be back next week with another live chat. Like I said, we'll talk about quilting animals, tips for picking designs for that, so definitely excited for that. If you're not watching live and you have any questions, again, please leave them in the comments. I get on there from time to time to answer it, and I cannot tell you enough how much I appreciate you watching and your support. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will see you next week. Until then, happy quilting.